Welcome to this webinar sponsored by the BYU Management Society. I'm Rixa Ullman, Executive Director. I'll be your moderator for today's event. We're so glad you could join us. We're pleased to have Mala Grewal and Caroline Welty here presenting on 3 signs or conversations are building relationships at work. A few housekeeping items before we start. The audio portion can be heard through the speakers on your computer. For those preferring to call in, note that you can choose that option on your screen panel. During the presentation, all attendees will be muted. That is so that you can hear us, but we can't hear you, and it will allow for better sound for everyone. Many of you asked questions on the survey when you registered. We've reviewed these, and we will respond to a number of them during the presentation. Again, welcome. Let me introduce today's speakers. If I can get it to change to the next screen. Hold on just a minute. Mala Grewal is a successful executive coach, facilitator, consultant, speaker, and author who can help connect us all to our highest potential in measurable ways. Her work with global companies, including Visa, Nestle, Exxon, Apple, and IBM, has resulted in authentic engagement and cultures delivering on key business results. She currently facilitates with leadership teams with General Assembly, Franklin Covey, and Inside Out Development. She's the founder and CEO of Talent Catalyst, a career performance consultancy committed to connecting millennials to their highest performance in a measurable way. She has an MA in Organizational Behavior from the University of San Diego and a BA in Communications from BYU. Caroline Welty is president of Talent Catalyst. She's a talent network cultivator, having placed candidates in entry to senior level positions at the financial industry leading firms, namely JP Morgan and Citibank, for 10 years. Her combined experience on the trading floor and as a human resource business partner offers her a unique vantage point when connecting talent from calling to market fit. She's a negotiation and people strategy wizard. Caroline was born in New York City, grew up in Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, and Tennessee. She enjoys adventure travel, is an avid skier, marathon runner, and cyclist. She has an MA in Organizational Psychology from Columbia University and a BS in Finance from BYU, Idaho. Now let me turn this time over to our presenters, and they will take over.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hoping you can see us and hear us. We're going to get going. Thank you, Rixa, for the very kind introduction. We appreciate it. Okay, we'll get going. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. We know that you're probably all very, very busy, so we appreciate you taking some time out of this Thursday to be with us to talk about 3 signs that your conversations are building relationships that work, and preferably relationships that are working for you rather than against you. Rixa already was so kind with her introductions. We appreciate the credentials that Rixa read off. We prefer to introduce ourselves in hashtags. We work with a lot of millennials and Gen Z and the younger workforce. So I'm an avid tennis fan. I'm really excited for the US Open this year and looking forward to going to Wimbledon, hopefully. It's my dad's 75th birthday, so we're going to go. I spend a lot of time on airplanes, and they're one of my favorite offices. And karaoke is my jam. If I can karaoke, I'm a happy person.
Hi, my name is Caroline, and I am an avid marathon runner. I've done 2 international marathons and 2 here in the U.S. I love TV, Netflix anyone, and ping pong champion. I have a ping pong table in my bedroom right now.
She's good. She's really good. And below here, just some clips of some client experiences that we've had recently. We love, like Rixa said, we're a human capital consultancy, and we work on increasing the productivity and the profitability of the younger workforce, so namely millennials and Gen Z, and helping managers and leaders of that workforce get that productivity and profitability out of them. So without further ado, we're assuming that you're on this webinar because you're asking yourself, how can I thrive in versus survive in my working relationships? When's the last time you woke up and went, I can't wait to survive today, right? It's a lot more enjoyable when we are thriving in something versus surviving. So this webinar is for you if you are an expert in your field or one day want to be and hope to be. This webinar is for you if you work with a high-performing team, high-performing individuals, high-performing colleagues, high-performing families. It's for you. Or if you want to work with these types of individuals. This webinar is for you if you are a manager, an individual contributor, a senior leader, a baby boomer, a Gen Xer, a millennial, Gen Z that has influence to lead or be led. And lastly, this webinar is for you if you're willing to implement the strategies that you'll learn today to have conversations that build trusted relationships. Our promise to you today is we're going to teach you a proven step-by-step strategy so that you can have effective conversations, motivate and lead through language, and build high-performing relationships. For those of you who do stay with us to the end, there's nothing for sale, we promise, but we do have a very cool gift for you. So we're about a minute and a half in, so we hope you're doing okay over there. So question, does this sound like you? Why are some members of my team so easy to talk to and others are so hard?
I'm not really good at small talk. If I don't have a reason to talk to them, what's the point of making the effort?
My colleague makes it so easy to speak with my direct report, but it doesn't go so smoothly for me.
They know I need something. No one has time for a student.
I don't really know how to start the conversation. I mean, I'm fine once it's going, but getting into it's really awkward.
I don't want to come across as selfish or like I'm talking to you for you just to get something. How do I do that?
I work from home. How do I build relationships over email?
I think too much about what will happen after the conversation instead of actually being in it.
So do any of these statements sound like you? Because if they do, you're in the right place. We resonate with these. And ironically, these statements are coming from you. These are statements that you filled in as you registered for the webinar, so hopefully they're resonating. Some more. How do I close the sale?
What happens when I'm an introvert after I need some downtime? I don't relish having to socialize.
I need to know when to jump in and when to back off in a conversation.
Where do I even begin the conversation about coming back to work after 20 years?
Conversations are a big deal, and they're a big deal because they're how we get our work done. Sometimes we don't treat them as formally or as significantly as we should, but if you think about how your work gets done, whether you're working in your home, whether you're working as an entrepreneur, whether you're working as a large enterprise. I mean, how our work gets done. What if you didn't talk to a colleague or a team member or a spouse for an entire day? How much work would get done? A lot of you may be thinking, a lot. That might be the best day of my career. Let's fast forward that day into a week, and then that week into a month. How much work would get done? And the reality is not that much work. Our conversations are critical, and they are the way that we get our work done. So sometimes I feel like my conversations aren't working the way I want them to. Our question for you is, do you feel like your conversations are working against you rather than for you? And there's a significant difference. But the question underneath that is, what's the real problem? Is it that we don't know how to have conversations? We've been doing it for a long time. Is that we've never worked with different types of people before? Probably done that. What's the real problem? And Caroline and I are asserting that the real problem is just that you haven't made the leap yet. And let us explain what we mean by this leap. Because once you make the leap, you'll understand what we're saying. You'll be able to have conversations that predictably work for you in a wide variety of situations across a range of audiences. You'll learn how to use language to your advantage as you prepare, practice, respond in, and lead your conversations. And last but not least, once you make the leap, you'll be able to clearly establish and deliver on expectations to build relationships of trust at work. Also, once you make the leap, you'll be able to have effective conversations, motivate and lead through language, and build those high-performing relationships that we all want. There are 3 key shifts that you'll need to make in order to make the leap. And these shifts will allow you to create relationships that work for you and to help you streamline your career, streamline your education, and your role as a leader. And today we're going to show you exactly how to do that. making the leap. What does this have to do with you or me advancing in your career, advancing in your education, advancing in your role within your home or your family? What does it have to do with really anything? Well, here's the premise. The foundation of relationships it goes something like this. The quality of our relationships is the quality of our work experience and vice versa. So as the quality of our relationships get better, so does the quality of our work life. And so does the quality of our ability to achieve our desired outcomes, aka our ability to get what we really want. So these relationships are completely correlated to us getting what we want. And evidently a lot of Americans aren't. These are the recent Gallup numbers from the 2016 survey on the state of the American workforce. Only 33% of employees are engaged. Only 21% of employees strongly agree that their performance is managed in a way that motivates them to do truly outstanding work. And lastly, only 18% strongly agree that employees who perform better grow faster in their organization. And this last one is particularly alarming to myself and Caroline. We're in the performance business. And to know that actually only 18% are really incentivized to perform is startling news. And these are lower numbers than we've ever seen in the history of the United States workforce. And we think this is one of the reasons why. These numbers tell us that a lot more people are surviving their relationships at work than thriving in their relationships at work. Because again, the quality of their work experience or their engagement levels is the quality of the relationships. And we build relationships one conversation at a time. So the model you're looking at on the screen is what we call the Emoda Can effect, because you really can affect the way that relationships go by your ability to have conversations. So how many of you have found yourself in relationships that you feel like you have to be in? Like, I have to pay my mortgage. I have to call my landlord. I have to talk to my son today, even though he didn't clean his room or do any of the things he just told me he would do, right? How many of you have been in those relationships? And we would say if we're in those, which we all are inevitably, we are surviving that relationship. And how many of you and us have been in relationships where you genuinely want to be in them? You can't wait to be in this relationship.
You're so excited. You can't wait.
Yeah, they're so fun that you just go, I can't wait to see you, right? And those are relationships like, I can't wait to see my friend, or I can't wait to see my husband today, or I can't wait to see my boss because this company is awesome and I love working here. I can't wait to work with my team today. If you can respond yes to any of those or resonate, then you're in relationships where you're thriving. And the purpose of this webinar is today is to move us from relationships we're surviving to relationships where we are thriving. And we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, so here are our 3 strategies to having conversations that allow us to thrive. The first one is to share emotion. The second one is to mindfully respond. And the third is to always acknowledge. So with these strategies, we're going to give you 3 tips to what we call thrivival. Instead of survival, we want to make sure that you thrive. So we'll start with tip number 1. Go ahead, Caroline.
What motivates them? So to understand what really drives us, we need to understand what really motivates us. So motivation can be defined as the level of energy, creativity, and commitment we bring to our jobs. And really understanding what drives the other person you're in conversation with, you can better understand speaking with them, and you can unlock what motivates them. And it will give them an invitation so that they want to share their passion with you. Those who are motivated produce higher quality work, greater output, and earn higher incomes, and are 150% more likely to have a happier life overall. Now, don't we all want that?
Yes,
absolutely.
Please. I'll take it. I'll take 10.
So let's talk about motivation for a minute. What are some words you would use to describe what motivates you? Why do the words we use to describe motivation differ from each other? What would happen if we had a list of motivators we could choose from? How would this knowledge, plus having a common language, impact our conversations? Would they make them easier? Would we be better understood? Would we connect faster with one another? What if we knew each member of our family and team's motivators? How would our relationships be better? What would the impact on connectivity, trust, and overall performance be on our relationships overall? You guys, there's good news. There's an assessment out there called What Motivates Me? And it takes the top 23 motivators and it puts them from highest to lowest and it ranks them for you. So for example, there's some that are autonomy, creativity, money, impact, team, recognition, and challenge. I'm going to tell you a story about my motivation results and the impact they had on me on my professional career. And then we'll get into my top 5 motivators.
It's a good one. This is good.
So I worked at Citi for 5 years, and I had been in my specific role, my last role, for 18 months. And while I was in this role, I had a particularly really tough manager. I had no leadership and no learning was really done. We had a very trying relationships. Both of us were really frustrated. And so my managing director, her boss, decided one day that she was going to part ways with my manager for different reasons. And she decided that the new manager they were going to hire, she was going to be specifically hired to help develop the necessary skills and competencies needed for me to grow in my current role and in my next role. The good news is that both my managing director and new manager saw that I had capability and they wanted to capitalize on what motivated me. So my new manager had me take a motivators assessment the day one that she came on board. And the trick that you guys need to know is my new manager, she didn't sit in New York, she sat in London. So we took this assessment without ever formally meeting in person. And I took the assessment and she took hers, and we got to share our results. And from these results, she devised a plan how she could get more out of me. So I want to go through the results, and then I'll get back to the story. So your motivators, you have 23 of them. So here are my top 5. They're friendship, service, challenge, problem solving, and excitement. And what you need to know, if you start a relationship, a working relationship with me, if it starts with becoming a really good friend of me, and if it starts with really challenging me and giving me projects where I can problem solve, you're going to get a lot more out of me, and I'm going to be more inclined to want to work harder for you, and I'll be more dedicated, and you'll get better results from me. So let's continue back to the story. So this manager, she took my results, she highlighted my top motivators that we just mentioned, and she helped leverage those to get me to the next level in my career. So together we laid out a plan so that I could get specific experiences where I could use my top motivators to shine. And then we reviewed her results to match our commonalities and complementary differences. And this had a significant impact on how remote and our relationship, especially from London to here in New York City. And she was one of the best managers I've ever had. She really understood me from the beginning and what I wanted to do in my career, and we got really aligned with what my objectives were. And this all was because a little bit of one little assessment made all the difference in this professional relationship. So motivation, you can move from IQ to EQ. Instead of telling my manager, she just asked. We took that assessment and we made it, and we took it to make a huge advantage, and it worked for our success.
Yeah, so I would say one of the things that really helped you in working with her is that she had that IQ and that EQ piece.
Yep.
And in an industry that really heavily lends itself to IQ, it was refreshing to work with somebody who was focused on EQ. Right? And that's what that motivators assessment brought out. Yeah. So that's tip number 1, is figure out what motivates your team member, what motivates your direct report, what motivates your manager, what motivates your family. I mean, what are the key motivators, and how are they different from yours? And this will distinctly shape the way that you approach your conversations with them. Tip number 2 is think first, speak second. Very good idea in theory. Very hard idea in practice. Very tricky. So my question for all of us on the webinar is, what would happen if we woke up with what we call a SWIFT mindset instead of what we call a WIFM mindset? WIFM standing for what's in it for me. And WIFM is a very natural way to think. We all think that way. And just because we think what's in it for me doesn't mean that we're bad or selfish people. It's a really natural thing to do. But what could change if we woke up thinking, I wonder what's in it for my manager to talk to me today. I wonder what's in it for my 4-year-old to talk to me. I wonder what it's in it for my team to talk to me today. I think a lot could change. Our relationships would be stronger. They'd be more adaptive in any environment, small startup environment, family environment, large enterprise environment, factory and manufacturing environment, healthcare environment, you name it. Financial services, any environment, because our ability to understand one another's experiences would be so much richer and so much deeper. Let me tell you a quick story about what I mean by this. This has our ability really quickly to think first and speak second has everything to do with the language that we use. So the story I'm going to show you, there's a language piece that plays a critical role in our ability to think so what's in it for them, and then to have a conversation that's going to work for us. And the example I'm going to use, this is a story, a very recent story, is going to showcase how language plays a role in the way people hear and then the way that they respond. So this was a great opportunity I had actually at the beginning of this year to go on a European company retreat. And I was really excited because I was going with the leadership team, and I was responsible for leading a brainstorm with that team on the company mission, the vision, and the values. And this was a startup, so it's young, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a great energy about it. It's a ton of work, but it's fresh and it's young. So we get to the location. It's gorgeous. It's on a lake. It's in a very reputable spot. It's very famous, and we're all there. And we start day one. I start day one facilitating this conversation around this company mission. Well, 10 minutes into the conversation, I started noticing my energy coming down and down and down. That's not good news if you're facilitating the conversation. That's actually really, really bad. And I started going, what's going on? And I felt really, really stuck, but it was my job to lead this. And I had it organized, and I knew exactly how I was going to run this, but my energy just started dropping and dropping. And I realized that every time I would ask a question, or oftentimes when I would ask the question, hey, so let's just talk mission. Give me every idea. I know this is what we have decided upon, but I know we want to make some adjustments. What do you think? I would get a response similar to, well, yeah, but I don't know if we should redo it. That's why we're here. We're here to redo it. Or I get an answer, a response like, well, I hear you, Mala. That could be a good idea, but however, XYZ. Or another kind of response where after I throw out a few ideas that we had talked about, they'd say, well, no, I don't know what you mean by that idea. And I started realizing that these key words of but, however, no, they were shutting down my energy completely. So I went from brainstorming, fun, like this is a really fun exercise, to brainstorming, I'm all done. So I found myself 60 minutes into this experience in this gorgeous place and venue. It felt like 60 hours to me. And the result was, in working with this organization, I started doing everything I could by myself. I started withholding creative opinion and creative work until the last possible moment when I had to share it. And that was a ton of work on me and a ton of responsibility. And the organization was still moving along, but there was a lot of pressure in it. And there was a lot of just high stress and high level, I just felt very stuck in it, but there was no, it's like it was on a treadmill, but you couldn't get off of it kind of thing. But then I started thinking swift. I started looking at the patterns and going, I wonder why they respond that way. There must be a why behind this. If I would just hold back and think before I would respond to this, there might be something to it. So I realized that choosing your words is really powerful, and thinking swift to understand where the person's coming from, where the team's coming from, is significant. And here is why. And I'll read this quote and then explain it. Negating people tends to provoke defensiveness and skepticism, which is the opposite of openness to your leadership. And this is what I was experiencing in this brainstorming retreat. We commonly, however, unintentionally and unconsciously respond to people starting with the words no, but, and however. You may not think the words make that much difference, or may not intend them to, but you don't get to choose how other people hear you. And so I realized two things in this moment. Number one, I realized that the leadership team had come from a long history in an industry, primarily financial industry, legal services, where they were very heavily negated in their roles. Negated meaning they had to prove everything. And it was almost at times that as if they were invisible. And they had to prove their worth in every meeting and with every deliverable. And this defensiveness had just become a habit. And the language wasn't even a consideration. It was completely subconscious. And so the great news about working with this team is today I thoroughly am starting to enjoy working with the team because we've had a conversation about this language. And we've had a really frank conversation. And as a result of it, we've been able to, I watch this client now in this team say, oh, I did the but thing again, or, oh, I said no again too soon, let me try it over. And so my understanding, oh, there was heavy negation here, that's what happened, has allowed them to go, yeah, there was. And I can pay attention to this language and I can get better. I can essentially think first and speak second. It'll save a lot of heartache and trouble. So the response sequence is critical. So what we're suggesting here is the shift to go from first understanding yourself to no, let's first understand them, and then your understanding of yourself will come. And then the second point is seek to understand before you're understood. When it comes to having conversations that build relationships that work, it's all about our ability to ask the questions and respond in a way where the person on the other end feels understood. And once they feel understood, they'll be able to ask you those questions so that you can feel the same way. Fair? Okay. And tip number 3, Caroline, what's tip number 3?
Don't hate, appreciate.
Don't hate, people, appreciate. That's what we're all about here. This goes a long way when it comes to relationships. So always start a conversation with acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, acknowledgement, acknowledgement. Again, this may seem very basic. It may seem elementary and very intuitive, but you would be amazed at how many conversations, especially in the workforce and in our homes for that matter, start with what went wrong. They start with what's broken, what's missing, or what's hurting us, as opposed to what's working, right?
And what really went well.
Yeah, and what went well. So when's the last time you didn't want to receive a compliment?
Or be acknowledged for your efforts.
Right? Like we all want that. Like when's the last time you turned down a compliment? No, thank you, I have enough of those. They're all saved up, we're good to go. So it's just acknowledgement goes a long way, and here's some ways to access that acknowledgement. One is, what do you appreciate about the person you're talking to or the team that you're working with? What do you genuinely appreciate? It's our bet that you can probably find at least one thing you appreciate about that other person or that team. 2, what value do they bring to the table? Ask yourself that, and then you can quickly access something to acknowledge them for. More often than not, there's some sort of value you're getting out of the relationship, or you just cut it off cold turkey. Number 3, what are they doing or not doing that makes your job or your life easier? You can figure that out. It's pretty easy to acknowledge the person from there. Next question, who are they and who do they want to become? And that's what I love about tip number 1 is figuring out what motivates them. And Caroline's story demonstrates this so well is, you know, your manager at this point really took a look at who Caroline was and then said, oh, well, I know who she wants to become in this organization. I know what she wants to do in her career beyond this organization, which is a really good manager who wasn't threatened by that. And who said, no, let's do this. Like, I want to help you become who you want to become. And in tandem, you naturally did the same for her, right? You wanted her to win.
This last one, Mal, is my favorite.
Yeah.
How much time on average do you give them to talk about themselves and be heard without any advice or opinions? How often are we actually actively listening just to listen?
Yeah.
I think that's key.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll run a coaching workshop together, and the number 1 piece of feedback we hear with what worked for people's experiences, it just felt so good to be listened to for 20 minutes without any advice or any opinions, just be heard. And that's significant in relationships. So half of the success in conversations, I'd say more than half, is our ability to listen, to actively listen. Quick story here from an experience of Kim Scott. She recently released a book called Radical Candor. And here at Talent Catalyst, we've been completely in love with this book. If you haven't
read it yet, we highly recommend it.
Kim's great. Yeah, she's fantastic. It's very popular in the Silicon Valley at the moment, given where Kim works. So this is a quick story about her experience at Google. So this is good. She was at Google for just a couple of weeks at the time when she was asked to present to the senior team. So she goes to present to the senior leadership team. A lot of pressure. She walks out and feels like, on the whole, pretty good. Yeah, like I did pretty well, so it was okay. Like I think I got by. I think I did a pretty good job. And she's thinking this until she turns the corner and sees Sheryl Sandberg standing right there against the wall, waiting for her to come out of this meeting. So if you remember that emoticon effect, the picture with the emoji faces, I mean, which face do you think she went from? She started with to, went to. It's Sheryl Sandberg, for crying out loud. So she's thinking, oh, here we go. Cheryl's here to tell me what I need to work on because I'm brand new to Google and I probably messed that up. But the first thing that Sheryl said to her, and she remembers this, and her writing on it is beautiful in the book, Sheryl says, Kim, you're going to have an amazing career here at Google. Right? You could almost hear the air come out of the room there. And Kim writes about this, and she says, Cheryl got my attention right away because of two things. One, she remembered my name, and two, she acknowledged me. When I thought she was going to give me, you know, have a developmental conversation with me, she acknowledged me. And then what she proceeded to do was she listed 4 specific things that Kim did well. And to illustrate her points in the meeting, right, she said, you know, you did X, you did Y, and she appreciated that Cheryl pointed to very specific things and gave her data in true Google fashion, that it really showed her that Cheryl was actively listening to her presentation. The third thing she remembers is that Cheryl looked her in the eyes, and she said, I learned a lot today from the way you handled those questions, which Kim, ironically, felt that was her biggest weakness, was the questions. That was the part she thought she bombed. And Cheryl, in fact, thought that she did really well. And the last thing she remembers is that she related and encouraged with her. She said, I know you always want to focus on what you think you could have done better. I do too. But I want you to focus on what you did well, because overall, this was a tremendous success.
I thought that was the best part, because Kim's still waiting for that bomb to drop. She's like, oh no, oh no. And at the very, very end, Cheryl goes, oh, by the way, you said a lot. So we're just going to give you a coach and help you stop saying that. So it was so small that where she needed to improve. That was my favorite part of this whole story, that she really focused on what she did well at and how she can do even better at that.
Yeah, and the critique. Look at the one critique.
It's so small.
Yeah.
It's so easy to overcome.
And how she said it. You know, she said, you said a lot. Were you aware of it? Question mark.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. And Kim, so she spent the time, Cheryl spent the time out of her day really to give Kim Scott acknowledgement and support her in her new career here at Google. And Kim's response to it was, it made me want to solve my own problem immediately and appreciate Cheryl. And it inspired me to give better guidance to my team and start that guidance with acknowledgement. So the shifts here, again, this is all about Kim being in this position where she was just trying to survive this meeting, went over to Thrive by the end, thought she did pretty well, walked out, saw Cheryl, thought, oh no, went back into survival mode. I have to defend, I have to protect, I hope I didn't bomb the whole thing too. By the end of this very quick, it was only a 3-minute conversation. That's the best part. By the end of 3 minutes, you see that Kim has arrived back on the Thrive side of the Emoticon effect and is really looking forward to her career at Google. And that's the impact a 3-minute conversation can have.
Yeah, just go back for a second. I mean, and the change that Kim saw there in the conversation, so she was thriving, like right from the beginning of it until the end. So what would it be like if you, on this call, could have conversations that change from right now today where you're thriving versus surviving, and you're more on the thriving side, and it can happen just for you.
And how can you utilize these tips for Thrivevival to move over there?
Yeah.
How can you ask questions about really understanding what motivates people? How can you pause, think before you respond to something, right?
Yep.
And then how can you begin conversations with acknowledgement? And don't hate, appreciate. It goes a long, long way. So the shifts here in this tip is, instead of trying to fix people, recognize the things that are going well. And oftentimes it's a supernatural reaction to want to fix, but recognition goes a long way. And the next shift, of course, is instead of expecting things from people, notice what's working, and then you'll be able to more accurately set expectations of one another and come to an agreement there. Okay, so nice work, everyone, for hanging in. Is your head spinning yet? And if it is, great news, because that's what we want your head to be doing. Today we promise to teach you a proven step-by-step strategy so that you can have effective conversations, motivate and lead through language, watch for the buts, no's, and howevers, and build those high-performing relationships through acknowledgement and through understanding motivation. So here are our conversation strategies once again. Emotion is okay, and it doesn't mean you have to be a therapist at work. It just means that you need to be able to access the emotional intelligence you have within yourself just as equally as you can access your IQ. The second piece of a mindful response is be thoughtful when you're responding to somebody. We don't have the privilege of choosing or selecting how somebody hears us. And so use our words wisely. And last but not least, always acknowledge, always, 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 there's something some good you can find in the person that you're speaking with. All right, congratulations, everybody. You made it. So with that said, how can we help you Whether you're sitting in a small organization or not sitting in one at all, maybe you're in your home office, or maybe you're sitting in a high-rise in New York a couple blocks down the street. We're not sure, but we'd love to be able to help you. We can, I'm going to walk you through 5 things, and hopefully these make sense to you. Number 1, if you're interested in learning more about motivation and how to unlock that in your people in a really simple way, we're happy to provide an assessment and jump on a call, or shoot, you can shoot us an email and we can get you that assessment.
And it can be for you, it can be for your whole team, and we can also come and we can train your team on how to actually look at the results and what to do with them and how to use them in your everyday work. And we can train it just for you personally as well.
Absolutely. So if you want the assessment we're referring to, just let us know. We can hop on a call with you. We're happy to talk to you about what you're up to with your organization, how the relationships are going, how the conversations are building those so that you can build the teams that you want. We host workshops. We host full day and half day workshops. We customize them. We have some core competencies that we focus on, and then we customize to the needs of your organization. We can also do a mini version of that in a keynote for 60 or 90 minutes. If you're having an offsite or a retreat or a town hall or a meeting where you see fit to bring in a keynote speaker, we'd be happy to come speak on productivity, profitability, and change. And last but not least,
generations. Let's not forget our
little guys, millennials and Gen Z. And then coaching. If you think that you would benefit from coaching on any of the topics that we've discussed, for any of the audiences that we've discussed, we are executive coaches, and we're happy to provide that service to you. Yeah. Also, question: we may be nearby you. Caroline, go ahead.
So we'll be in San Francisco in June. Salt Lake City just next week for a week and a half, and then we're always here in the good old NYC.
Yeah. And we'll also be in Salt Lake in June as well. We're going back and forth between Salt Lake and San Francisco. So if it makes sense for us to meet in person or get on the call in your time zone, we can do that. So without further ado, thank you for being here. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Here is our email, our website, and our phone number. And you can also find us on social media and start a conversation that way. And also, there should be some feedback questions at the end, right?
Yeah, please fill those out, especially if you're interested in hearing from us. Fill it out so we can get your information so we can speak to you.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. And we always are looking to improve these webinar experiences for all of you who take the time to join us. So please, your feedback would be more than helpful. It should take about 2 minutes max.
And that way we can send you your free gift, because we don't want to forget about that.
The free gift. It's coming your way. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Oh, thank you, Mala and Caroline, so much. We appreciate your insights and understanding, and I know I've certainly learned a lot, and it's reminded me of things I need to know about motivation and motivating, about understanding other people as I talk with them and acknowledging them and giving a mindful response. Again, this has been recorded, and we'll post it on the Management Society website under resources, and I will send you a link to that recording. Don't forget to join us on our next webinar on Monday, May 15th. Utah time, Sydney Tetro and Sarah Jones will talk about women in tech, the story of the Women Tech Council. So have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Bye.